Health officials advise public to continue to adhere to health guidelines. What is the government's stance on the MCC? JVP questions. Ministry secretaries are not state sector employees. Minister Bandula Gunawardena explains.
රාජ්‍ය සේවකයෝ නෙමෙයි අමාත්‍යාංශ ලේකම්වරු කියන කෙලින්ම ජනාධිපතිවරයා විසින් පත් කරන අය.
Over 225 kilograms of heroin found in Valisara. Heavy showers in the western, southern, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces. Flood warning issued.
Good evening, you're watching Primetime News on TV1. On to your lead story now. The Department of Meteorology states that heavy rainfalls could occur in southern, western and Sabaragamuwa districts exceeding 150 millimeters. Newsfirst's Jamma Ratnayaka joins us with the latest weather updates.
Good evening and welcome to Weather First. Now, earlier today, the Department of Meteorology predicted heavy rain that will follow for the next 24 hours. The reasoning behind this inclement weather is a low pressure area developing in the southeast Bay of Bengal and adjoining Andaman Sea area. And according to the latest weather update issued by the Department of Meteorology, prevailing showery condition in the southwestern parts of the island, more particularly the western, southern, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces, are expected to continue further, and very heavy falls above 200 millimeters of rain will occur later tonight. And showers or thunder showers will also occur elsewhere, especially in the eastern, Uva and north central provinces, above 100 millimeters. Meanwhile, the Department of Irrigation has issued early flood warnings for those living in the banks of the Mioya, Daduru Oya, Kalani River, Kalu River and surrounding waterways. Also, the NBRO, or the National Building Research Organization, has issued landslide early warnings for Ukuela in Matale and Baddegama, Akmimana, Alpitia, Niyagama, Bope and Poddala areas. Now, let's take a look at the situation that persisted in Colombo and its suburbs and many parts of the island earlier today.
The Colombo city and suburbs experienced heavy rain accompanied by severe lightning and strong winds. Our correspondents reported that many roads in Colombo and its suburbs were inundated as a result. The area of Nugegoda was also affected by the showery conditions. Many areas in the Gaul district experienced heavy showers along with strong winds since the early hours of today. A similar situation was witnessed in many of the Gampaha districts. Seas surrounding the island were moderately rough.
People has to be very vigilant around the river banks and the particular areas which is mentioned as the Mi Oya, Attanigalu Oya and Daduru Oya and Kalani River and Kalu River and Ganga and the Nirvala Ganga and the Kirama R of Bengal and the Urubak Oya in that particular area. So people need to be very vigilant with that prevalent situations.
On to another top story this evening. 225 kilos and 969 grams of heroin was seized by the Police Narcotics Bureau in Valisara. 4 suspects have been arrested. According to the police, close to 800 kilograms of heroin was seized by the police during the period when curfew was enforced.
The Police Narcotics Bureau carried out this raid in Valisara last night based on a tip-off received. The heroin was found packed inside rice bags. The Police Narcotics Bureau seized a luxury vehicle and a cab. The seized stock of heroin has a street value of over 2.3 billion rupees. If this raid was delayed by about 2 to 3 minutes, we would have lost the chief suspects. So we conducted this raid tactfully. The chief suspect is a person in prison who we have identified as a drug smuggler. He is in custody over a drug-related charge. The person conducting these operations is one of his main accomplices. He too was in prison for some time, and both of them are involved in this. The arrested suspects are residents of Homagama and Valisara. They were trying to distribute this heroin across the country using lorries under the guise of providing essential services. But I think they have attempted to get a number of curfew passes, but they were unsuccessful. They were planning to use these two vehicles and transport this contraband in the future. We will continue investigating this case. We have information to confirm that the drugs were brought into the southern seas of the country from Afghanistan and Iran and were then brought to Kandana. We are hoping to produce the suspects before courts and get a detention order for 7 days. Afterwards, we will be conducting our investigations into the others involved in this.
What is the coronavirus situation in the country today? 471 COVID-19 patients are currently receiving treatment in hospital. The total number of confirmed cases in the country stands at 925. 445 of them made a full recovery.
According to health officials, 90% of the spread of coronavirus in the country has been brought under control.
The COVID-19 Vasanga.
We have brought the spread of the COVID-19 virus under control. We have not seen the community spread of the coronavirus taking place. However, as there is still a risk of the virus spreading, we must continue to adhere to health guidelines. If we do not practice these measures now, we will be at risk. So do not forget to maintain social distancing measures.
අනිවාර්යෙන්ම අපි එකිනෙකා අතර පරතරය කිසි විටකත් අමතක කරන්න එපා.
The Bandaranayaka Mawatha in Colombo 12 and Suduwella in Jayala, which were declared as isolated areas, were reopened today. Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva said that there are no isolated areas in the country at present. These areas that were isolated since the 17th of last month were reopened today. This was done because there were no patients reported from these areas since the 25th of April. We decided to quarantine a small number of people who were from a number of estates. These estates have been placed under quarantine for 14 days. Meanwhile, PCR tests were conducted on more than 120 people, including the bus drivers at the central bus stand in Fort and three-wheeler drivers. About 100 PCR tests were conducted on employees at the Gaul Municipal Council. The walking paths that were closed down due to COVID-19 and consequential curfew were reopened today. Meanwhile, another group of about 2,000 people stranded in Colombo returned to their hometowns earlier today. Chairman of the Medical Laboratory Science Professionals Association, Ravi Kumudesh, says that PCR testing should be implemented covering every district in the country. Don't confine PCR testing to several hospitals in Colombo and to several universities. Do not confine it to a particular area. We highlight that this testing procedure should be implemented in outpatient departments at hospitals, harbours, airports and in every district. The only way we can prevent the second wave of this virus is by providing this testing facility to the nearest location to every citizen who feels that they should go and test themselves for the virus.
පමණයි මේ රෝගය දෙවනි කැරැල්ල බවට පත්වීමේ ඉඩකඩ අපිට අහෝසි කරන්නට පුළුවන්.
On to political stories of the day now. Following are the views expressed by former parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa about the national operation to revive the country.
After the country was in lockdown for over 50 days, we have now restarted the country. The time has come to restart our nation. This is not limited to us as a country. This is a global pandemic. So the effects of this will be felt by the whole world. The global economy has begun to fall. The global unemployment rate is increasing. Here at home for a long time we had an economy where we imported about 86% of what we require. Time has come to rethink about the daily lives of the people in the country. This is not only limited to our country. We have a requirement to change. What should we do in the future? Where should we go? How should we build this country? What are the policy changes that should be made? There is a broad discussion in the country today on how we as a government and the various departments can support new inventors.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna candidate Mohammad Muzammil says that elections have been held even when dengue was at its peak. Following are his views on holding an election.
Elections have been held even when dengue was at its peak. People could have contracted dengue when they were at the polling station. So elections were held during such times. We cannot live life according to our old ways. Life has to be approached in a new way. Therefore, we have to hold elections in a new way.
A special discussion on the manner in which the election would be conducted was held at the Elections Commission today.
The chairman of the Elections Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, members of the Election Commission, district secretaries and a number of international election observers were present at the meeting. Discussions were held on preparing guidelines for the general election.
At a time where various views are expressed on the election, following views were expressed in the political arena.
A new parliament was supposed to convene today. That was not done. The 3 months in the constitution ends after 2nd of June. So you cannot hold an election before the 2nd of June. Therefore, the decision taken by the president to dissolve parliament has been proven to be illogical. Against such a backdrop, the president has the power to revoke his earlier order and issue a new one. The president has the power to hold the elections on a date where the National Election Commission and the health sector are in agreement, and issue another order to convene Parliament on a later day. This was an issue we could have resolved with 40 to 50 patients in March. Today the number is at 900. This is not an act of bravery. 9 former parliamentarians have written a letter to the Director General of Health Services under the Right to Information Act, but the information has not been given until today. Why are they hiding information about these tests?
Where does it state in the Constitution that Parliament should be convened if you cannot hold the general election? There are 2 very distinct places in the Constitution which provide explanations with regard to convening the old Parliament. The President is of a strong stance. He had said that emergency law will not be enacted and that he can carry out the activities of the country with the prevailing law. So why are the people asking us to convene Parliament? When Parliament is convened, the President's powers over state funds will be taken over by the Parliament. If you do not give out money to curb the virus, what would happen? What would happen if a no-confidence motion is brought against the President in an attempt to sabotage his state affairs? There is only one institution to decide whether this will turn out to be a constitutional problem. That is the Supreme Court. This matter has been taken to the Supreme Court. The court will listen to both parties and decide whether this is a constitutional problem or not. That cannot be decided by politicians.
The National Elections Commission has decided to hold the election on the 20th of June. Therefore, the 3-month time period has been violated here. If the President had inquired this from the Supreme Court, we wouldn't have gone to courts. It was the President who made us go to court. It does not matter that he is pretending to be a king. According to the Constitution, the people of this country are the real kings. The President should act bearing that in mind. We clearly stated that the chairman of the National Elections Commission is not ready to hold an election over dead bodies.
ඉස්සලගොනේ හෘද සාක්ෂියට එකක් කතා කරනවා කියලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුව නෑ අද හරණං රැස් වෙන්න එපා. ඔව් කොහොමද දැනෙන්නේ එක?
I do not feel anything towards that. According to the Constitution, a dissolved parliament has been adjourned due to the pandemic. That was done in line with election law. The sole responsibility is to act according to the law of the country. That has been done. No one but the president can convene the old parliament. The president does not wish to govern the country under emergency law.
At a time where the people have decided that the government cannot act to their benefit during this time, at a time when the people have decided on the failure of the government, it is very clear that this is an endeavor by our government to repress the opposition and grab onto power.
The president understands the need of protecting the democracy of the country. President has no intention of running this country without a parliament at any instance. The National Elections Commission has postponed the election due to various influences. The responsibility of the National Elections Commission is to hold the election. If the National Elections Commission is operating against holding an election, then the day people will take it to the streets against the National Elections Commission is not far away. Because it is very clear that non-state organizations and various political forces are operating within the National Elections Commission.
රාජ්‍ය නොවන සංවිධාන ක්‍රියාත්මක වීමත් විවිධ දේශපාලන බලවේග ක්‍රියාත්මක වීමත් පැහැදිලිව පේන්න තියෙනවා.
The lack of apathy of the politicians towards the real problems of those they represent is highlighted by the fact that there continues to be issues surrounding the 5,000 rupee allowance. These residents of Bambarawana Dehiyatha Kandiya are among those who have had issues with the 5,000 rupee allowance. The Grama Nilidhari officer of the Dambadiva division of the Godakavela Divisional Secretariat was attacked over a dispute in the payment of the 5,000 rupee allowance. The Grama Nilidhari officer is receiving treatment at the Pallabadda District Hospital. While complications continue to crop up when doling out the 5,000 rupee allowance, several factions highlight that this program is being carried out violating election laws. Addressing a letter to the chairman of the NEC, former JVP parliamentarian Lakshman Nipuna-Arachchi apprises him that the Samurdhi Development Department has distorted the 2019 electoral register when distributing the 5,000 rupee allowance. The letter notes documents sent to several areas bear the symbol of the SLPP printed on them, while others do not. Lakshman Nipuna-Arachchi reminds the chairman through the letter of another statement issued by the NEC on the 18th of April 2020, directing authorities to refrain from using the electoral register for the program. He requests the NEC to conduct a probe into the matter. Meanwhile, the Samurdhi Development Officers Union has directed a letter to the Auditor General. The letter contains information claiming that the Samurdhi Development Department had borne the cost to print the electoral registers. The letter reveals that a cost of 1.2 million rupees had been borne to print the electoral registers, and that too had not been carried out according to due process. The union requests the Auditor General to commence an investigation into the matter. Election monitors also claim it is illegal to utilize electoral registers when distributing the 5,000 rupees.
Copies of electoral registers which bear the word SLPP have been distributed by the Samurdhi Commissioner General to Samurdhi banks and managers in certain areas. The illegality of the matter can be elaborated in this manner. Firstly, a state official has involved himself in a politicized program without the approval of the NEC and has used the property belonging to the NEC. Secondly, according to the information we have received, these copies have been printed at the office of the Samurdhi Commissioner General.
Newsfirst inquired from the Director General of the Samurdhi Development Department, Bandula Tilakasiri, regarding the allegations. He said, acting on the directive issued by the NEC, he had initiated measures to prevent the documents from being printed, claiming that he had issued a notification in writing. The Director General further said the Samurdhi Development Department had requested the NEC to provide a formal and accurate register to avoid any complications in the future.
The proposal that we made was not to politicize this. At some places, government funds were distributed like it belonged to the politicians distributing them. We requested for this to be stopped, because this money distributed by the government during a trying time is for the welfare of the people. It is not something to be used to aid a political campaign. We are strongly against this.
Right now, our country is riddled with the burning questions of the possibility of an election, whether to convene the parliament, and president's power over state funds. Amidst all that, a large group of unnoticed people in our country are being battered by the wild elephants. As soon as they resume their agricultural activities, saving themselves from the pandemic, wild elephants are encroaching on their villages. This is the story of the people in the villages of Alakolawava, Vävala, Humbaskamuwa, Arunodaya in Damulla. Wild elephants have destroyed the lands they have cultivated. These elephants come from the Min Area Sanctuary. The nearest wildlife office located to these people is the Sigiriya Wildlife Office. These farmers told their story to us, the same story that fell into the deaf ears of the authorities, with the hope of finding solace to the crisis they face. Daladagama in Mahava is yet another village that is threatened by the wild elephants. Their constant battle with these animals came to critical juncture last night. This is the damage that was caused by the elephant to their homes. We showed you how a wild elephant had destroyed a house in Kohumakadawala, Mahava a few days ago. Not only that, 4 months ago we brought you the news of the loss of a valuable life due to this ongoing conflict. The Mahava Divisional Secretariat is located about 700 meters away from the village. If authorities have taken the necessary action, these children wouldn't have to search for their books in this rubble. Residents of this house, who were safe during the COVID-19 pandemic for 2 months, had to leave their homes last night to escape from this threat. This issue has been a never-ending crisis. When will the authorities understand the severity of this and provide a lasting solution that will save the humans as well as the animals?
What has happened to the MCC agreement that was due to be signed with the United States? The controversial agreement was discussed at a number of locations today.
Before this government came into power, they said that they will not even consider the MCC agreement. They said they will throw it in the dustbin. They said that this agreement is bad for the country and that it will give rise to many issues in the economy of the country. Because of this, they said they completely reject this agreement. But after coming into power, the President and the Cabinet appointed a committee to review this agreement. This committee submitted a report highlighting the good and bad aspects of the agreement. After the report was presented, members of the government said various things. But no one said that the MCC agreement will be done away with and it will not be signed. The process to sign the agreement is still ongoing. The people of the country would like to know about the stance of this government on the MCC agreement that is to be signed with America. What are the steps taken on the matter? We saw various discussions being held with the American ambassador. What were the decisions reached at this meeting? These decisions must be revealed to the general public.
There is only one institution in the country that can rule on the legality of that matter, and that is the Supreme Court. The matter is currently being taken up before the Supreme Court now. So the Supreme Court will hear submissions from lawyers from both parties and hand down a decision on whether or not there is a constitutional issue. Politicians and other parties cannot decide on this. The committee appointed by the President and headed by Professor Lalitha Sirigunaruwan in their report said that this agreement violated the Constitution of Sri Lanka. So we have informed the American officials on behalf of the government that this agreement would not go forward.
Our government will not sign any agreement that would affect the sovereignty of Sri Lanka. We will not sign any agreements like the MCC or the SOFA or any other agreements that will be detrimental to Sri Lanka. It was the United National Party that made these agreements because of the connections that they had with America. Our government will not sign this.
When we attempted to question the core cabinet spokesperson to authenticate the statements made by these government members, this was his response.
Millennium Challenge Corporation
The Presidential Commission appointed to probe the April 21st attacks continued examination of evidence today. Deputy Police Chief Chandranath, who was in charge of the Negombo division, testified today. In his testimony to the Presidential Commission probing the April 21st attacks, he said a letter containing intelligence information about the attacks reached him via a messenger on the 12th of April.
He said the contents of the letter were inspected on the 13th of April and all police stations under his control were informed about taking necessary measures. DIG Chandranath said the OIC of the intelligence branch of the Negombo division was advised to increase security across places of worship. He said the OIC of the intelligence branch, who was actively involved in intelligence gatherings on drug trafficking in the area at the time, reported back that there was no special information about an attack. However, the witness said senior DIG Nandanamunasinghe informed him about the attacks on the 20th of April, adding that he was not informed about any such attacks by DIG Deshabandhu Tennakone. Testifying before the Presidential Commission yesterday, senior DIG in charge of the Western Province, Vasantha Wickramasinghe, said that he did not receive a direct correspondence warning him of an imminent attack. He said that a report on the matter was given to the State Intelligence Service and the Criminal Investigations Department and all other concerned parties. However, the matter was not stressed when orders were given from the top brass of the police to other police officials. The Commission then questioned as to how the leave application of DIG Deshabandhu Tennakone was approved by the police department against a backdrop where information had come to light regarding an imminent attack. In response, senior DIG Vasantha Wickramasinghe said that he applied for leave on the 3rd of April 2019 and by that time no details on the attack had been reported. He added that he was on leave from the 18th of April and that he did not receive any details on the intelligence reports on the 20th of April. I was the DIG for Western Province North Range at the time and I provided evidence regarding that. I was on the leave on the 19th, 20th and the 21st when the attack occurred. I was supervised by Mr. Wickramasinghe. He was summoned as well.
We now cross over to a short break. Stay tuned.
Humans have always faced challenges and have always fought back and won. Humans always find a way together because in the end, we all matter. And together, we can and we will rise up. Nagitimo, Sri Lanka, the song a nation sings.
Welcome back. A special meeting was held between British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Sarah Halton, and the leader of the Samagi Jana Balawega, Sajith Premadasa, at the opposition leader's office today.
The meeting has focused on many important points. According to a release issued by the office of the Samagi Jana Balawega, former opposition leader Sajith Premadasa has requested the assistance of the United Kingdom to empower Sri Lanka's finance sector at a time where the entire country is facing various issues. Other countries have dedicated a large amount of money for the economic upliftment of the country. India has dedicated 6% of their GDP, South Korea 5%, Japan 21%, Australia 9%, Germany 4.9%, United States 11%, Singapore 3% and Canada 8%. Against such a backdrop, our country has spent only 0.006%. I told the British High Commissioner, at a time where the people of this country should be given at least 20,000 rupees, only 5,000 rupees are being distributed. I requested her to give us the remaining 15,000 rupees.
The Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations, in an exclusive interview with Newsfirst, commended the role of the Sri Lankan people during these difficult times.
Well, the first thing I want to say is I want to commend Sri Lanka. I want to commend the people, the government of Sri Lanka for the way in which you have already worked together to control this pandemic. Sri Lanka has yes, lost a number of people, but I'm tragically have to tell you that you have done so much better than so many of our other countries because of the way in which Sri Lanka has bound together and has really developed a cohesive way. All of us are trying our hardest, but some of us came to this terrible pandemic later and were able to learn from the things that those who went before us, who were struggling for the first time to understand this pernicious, wicked disease. But Sri Lanka was able to share all she knew with the rest of us. And what I am seeing through this equally tough time is yet again, our Commonwealth is reaching out its hands to our member states, our family. And once again, our Commonwealth is saying, what can I do to help?
With that, it's a wrap of primetime news for today. I'm Tarasha Kumar Singh along with our news interpreter Tharaka Gabriel. But don't go anywhere. We have Faraz Shaukat Ali joining us live from the newsroom. Faraz, over to you.